Hey there, guys. Welcome to another episode of the MH Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Miles Harrison. And today I'm going to be going over something that pretty much most clients have tend to ask me over the course of working, and that is, what supplements should I be taking? Now, first of all, the reason why I'm making this episode is to give obviously an opinion of mine when it comes to supplements. I always recommend, if you are going to go with supplements, go and do your own research, but also as well, strongly recommendation on getting your blood tests, your blood work and all that, because what that's going to allow you to do is you're actually going to see what you're actually deficient in, and therefore it allows you to spend money into actual things that are actually going to help you drive performance and push you to that next level. This episode is going to be generally for general population, but because I'm someone myself who does a lot of sports and does a lot of gym work, it is going to also be aimed some of it towards health and performance as well. Now, supplements as a whole, they should be secondary to the basics. And when I say the basics, I'm talking you train consistently, you sleep properly, you eat enough calories, you prioritize things like whole foods and stuff. So supplements are there to add to an already well thought plan. But then on the other side as well, if you're someone who does sport or someone who potentially can't do all those things at the same time, these are things that can particularly help. But if we're going it from a point of priorities, you're going to probably get a bigger bang for your buck working on the things that I've talked about before, and then adding supplements into that. The way I'm going to be following this out is I'm going to be going for a tier system. Tier ones are going to be like, if you are going to go into supplement, these are the must-haves. Tier two are not absolutely necessary, but are still quite important. And then tier threes are potential ones that I like having that could potentially help out with things in sports performance. So if you guys are ready, let's get straight into this. Now, tier number one is the first thing that's going to come into this tier is creatine monohydrates. Creatine monohydrates is the most researched supplement out there. Obviously, the mechanisms of this supplement are creatine increases phosphocreatine storage in the muscle. Phosphocreatine, it helps regenerate ATP. And ATP is the primary energy currency, high intensity efforts. So things like your sprinting, weight training, all that stuff. Now, what does that mean in real life? Real life means it's going to give you more strength. You'll have better performance in resistance training and a greater lean mass gains over time. But now what's actually really cool about creatine is not only are we seeing a lot of physical benefits towards it, and trust me, there's loads, we're also seeing a lot of mentally. We're seeing improvements in memory. We're seeing improvement of cognitive patterns as well. So things like decision making and stuff like that. It's for me, if I had to recommend any supplement to anyone, creatine is definitely the one I would recommend. I've even got my grandma on it. That's how sure I am of creatine. Creatine is something that I would recommend to anyone. Now, when it comes to dosing, most people are generally going to be okay with the recommended 5 to 10 grams of creatine. You can have it any day. There is quite a bit of small research that potentially says that having it post-workout is better, because generally we absorb nutrition better after post-workout. But with myself, I have all my vitamins and supplements generally mostly first thing in the morning, because it's the easiest thing for me and routine works. So even if it's not the most optimal, guys, if it's consistent, if it gets your results, in hindsight, who cares? So that's it. Yeah. So number one for me has to be creatine, guys. It's really cheap. The forms that I would recommend getting it is creatine monohydrate, which is a powder form. Don't recommend the gummies. Don't recommend the tablets. From what I've heard, when it comes to those supplements, sometimes the nutritional value on those isn't what they recommend. So just get the purest form. The only thing I would potentially say is a negative when it comes to creatine is probably the fact of, because it helps absorbs water within the muscle, it can lead up to gaining weight, but this weight is water weight because we're hydrating the muscle more, which means that it's potentially going to have a higher output. But I wouldn't even say that's a down point. It's just something to be clear on. Supplement number 2 is going to be a vitamin D. Now, vitamin D is a funny one because we obviously we get it from the sun. But if you're someone like me who lives in the UK, around the time of April and September, we probably don't get enough vitamin D. Now, vitamin D massively helps with performance. Okay. Obviously, from here, it's going to be really good for things like calcium absorption, bone mineral density, immune signaling, and even muscle contraction. So there's a lot of things going on when it comes to a vitamin D. And for someone like myself who spends quite a lot of the time inside and indoors, it's a really good supplement to have as well. And when it comes to generally vitamin D, what I've generally noticed with myself and my clients is my clients that take it consistently, we have better moods, we have better energy, we have better training sessions. So I think it's one of those ones where it's starting to get a little bit more attention, which is really, really good. And the research really, really backs it. So if you're someone who's in the UK, definitely take this supplement. It's a pretty much a game changer. Now, when it comes to doses, the doses on this quite change. Now we're starting to recommend a quite high doses. So we're saying somewhere between 1,000 to 4,000 IU. But this also depends on, like I said, how much sun you get within your day, how active you are. That does also play into effect. Athletes tend to take a higher dose because obviously they're doing a hell of a lot more. But yeah, this is something that, again, going back to what we originally said, when it comes to getting your blood works done, this might be something to look into as well, because you might be getting enough. More's not always better when it comes to supplements. So it's a good thing to always just go and check out. And then last one, when it comes to tier 1, guys, is a whey protein supplement. Whey protein is the easiest way to consume protein for people who don't get enough protein in a diet. I always would recommend an animal-based source when it comes to protein, but when you've got a busy job, maybe you're a parent, maybe you're a full-time athlete, you might not be able to get some steaks in you, might not be able to get some eggs or some chicken in you as well. It might be easy to stomach whey protein as well. I know now that clear whey is starting to get a little bit more efficient. More attention as well. And that's a really good thing if you maybe can't stomach whey protein as well. But we all should know the kind of mechanics by now. Obviously, protein provide amino acids, which help obviously stimulate muscle protein synthesis, which help obviously build more muscle. But not only that, we know from a fat point stand, when it comes to having a more protein in diet, we're going to have higher thermogenesis food, which means that the more protein that we consumed, the more extra calories that we consume from the actual protein as well. Protein obviously takes longer to digest, therefore it's obviously going to make you feel fuller for longer. And it's a pretty good damn supplement. It's not that expensive as well. It's not really should be a main consistent, but you can get a load of flavors, which is obviously quite nice as well. So if you're someone who doesn't get enough protein and really cares about their training, whey protein is definitely the one. Now, oh, sorry, I forgot to mention how much of a dose wise. So when we talk about protein, we always say a recommendation of 1.6 to 2.2 times your body weight in kilograms. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole thing of that today. Obviously, depending on your status, your goal, and all that, things might change. But I think the main thing to consider when you're obviously having a whey protein diet is still make sure that most of your food or your protein sources are coming from whole food, animal plant-based food. There we go. We move on to tier number 2. And the first when it comes to tier number 2 is omega-3s. Now, we all know that omega-3s incorporate into cell membranes, influence inflammatory signaling pathways, but it's just really good if you're someone like myself who probably don't fancy having fish all the time, probably don't get enough oily fish in your diet. I just think it's a really good one of getting those healthy fats in there as well. Also, as well, if you're someone who's potentially on the older side of the generation and you're getting a little bit of joint discomfort, omega-3s are really good for stuff like that as well. But like I mentioned before, if you eat fish probably 2 to 3 times a week, the benefits are probably going to be a lot smaller. Next one, and this was a close tier 1, just missed out on this, it's magnesium. Magnesium recently has been getting a lot of attention, and rightly so. It cofactors about 300 plus enzyme reactions, including ATP production and the nervous system regulation. So you could just tell by those fancy words, it's important. It's important. But a lot of the reasons why most people are using magnesium now is because it's not only really good for all those things that we've just mentioned before, but it's really good for helping you get a good quality sleep, which is mostly why I use it. I take a couple of them vitamin D tablets late in the night, just an hour before I go to bed, and it really, really helps you out get a good night's sleep. Side effects is you get some really, really weird dreams. I've had so many weird dreams on magnesium. So, and I noticed that if I don't take it and I don't have a weird dreams, when I wake up, I don't feel awake. So I guess it's a small side effect, but again, it's a good thing to have. So it is very useful if you're someone who's getting poor sleep, maybe you're someone who is high stress. It could also help with muscle cramping as well. So yeah, magnesium is a good tier 2 supplement to have. Cool. Last one, guys, on tier 2, we're going to have vitamin C. Now, vitamin C helps you support immune system and collagen synthesis. It's obviously really good for, obviously, again, your immune system, making sure you're not feeling well. So therefore, you get the momentum of training well and all that as well. But, and this is based in some studies, I guess, but high doses of this supplement may aid blood training and adaptation in certain contexts. So it might be helpful for an immune system type of thing, but for maybe performance enhancement, not so much. Again, I would recommend doing your own research on top of all this as well. Tier 3, we're going on to things that are not so necessary to have, but are a good thing to potentially have as well. These are going to probably be the minute things to have within things like your supplement count. First thing to have is beta-alanine. Now, beta-alanine is something that I've been having for a long period of time. Beta-alanine is technically a thing that gives you that little tingly feeling when it comes to pre-workouts. Usually the main ingredients of any pre-workout is beta-alanine, L-carnitine, and when it's a whey protein, then it's definitely not whey protein, is caffeine. What you get, we'll get into as well. But technically what beta-alanine is really good for is technically having a buffering capacity. So if you're someone who does high intensity sports, like myself who plays football, you can delay that fatigue, which is obviously absolutely massive, because one of the factors when it comes to fatigue is the feeling of fatigue. And we can actually blunt that by blunting the fatigue. That's why caffeine is a really good buffer as well. The only downside when it comes to beta-alanine is it has a very long loading time. Benefits of actually having creatine, and this is only having 3 to 5 grams a day, could take up to 10 weeks before feeling the benefits. So yeah, so if you're someone who wants to start beta-alanine, start it now. Well, start it soon, because it's going to take a while to bait into it as well. Okay. Next on the list is electrolytes. Now, again, electrolytes gets the overhype in the sense that everyone feels like the absolute nudity. Now, I'm a big fan of obviously using electrolytes within training, especially in high intensity sports, because when we sweat, one of the big things when it comes to recovery aspect is that we don't hydrate enough, but that's the key word. We need to make sure that we're still hydrated enough. Obviously, you add electrolytes to water as well. But if you're someone who generally sweats on the heavier side, electrolytes could be really, really important for keeping a lot of those electrolytes in there. So things like potassium and stuff like that as well, which we don't get enough of when it comes to water. That's why, for your fact of the day, the most hydrating beverage you could possibly have is skim milk. Who would have thought? And that's just generally because of high glycemic, sodium content, and obviously it's like water thing relate ratio and all that. But yeah, if you want to get quickly hydrated, skim milk is your thing. But if you don't want to be carrying a pint of milk with you everywhere, water with some hydration tablets is a really good thing to have. Next on the things to have is caffeine. Now, I mentioned caffeine before as a kind of thing of helper and bothering. Technically, what it does is block the receptors to make you feel less tired. It doesn't enhance performance. It just reduces the factors onto them, which therefore, again, if we don't feel tired, performance markers improve. Now, the reason why I put it in this kind of term and not something higher up is because people massively get dependent on it. Massively. I've seen people have it as pre-workouts late at night, and too much of a doses, it can potentially affect things like sleep, which therefore has a negative effect on recovery. Therefore, you're going to feel more tired, and it just starts this endless cycle of misery. So while I think it's really, really good for short-term performance, especially if you're playing things like football or you're doing high intensity within the gym, I don't think it's necessary to have. I still think there's a lot of basics that should be in your everyday lives that can come just before coffee. But then again, coffee is good. It's a good habit to get yourself into. Anyway, and then last not but least, guys, is zinc. Zinc is important for immune system and hormone production. Supplementation can only help if you're deficient. That's why it's not higher up as well. That's really it there, guys. I think, again, just to recycle the thing I said at the beginning of this podcast, supplements aren't there to overtake anything. Yes, they can help if you're doing all the basics really well, but also as well, if you're someone who's struggling to get those things and you need a little bit of help pushing you in that direction. It's all about building momentum when it comes to anything like this. And if taking supplements in the morning helps you set yourself out right for the day, I think they're a really good tool to use. All about building that momentum with everything. Are you training well? Are you recovering well? If you are, can you get the ball more rolling and add a few things in there as well? It's not one of those things where if you stop taking your supplements, everything's massively going to slow down, unless you're looking at the tier ones. But I really think that supplements are a useful thing to have when an already established base is there. And I'm going to leave it on that there, guys. Thank you very much for listening to me whine about supplements for a good few of 20 odd minutes. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Now, I say it most episodes, but if you've probably got another 10, 15 minutes to listen to me speak, maybe about a different topic, maybe nothing about supplements, then go listen to another episode. I'll see you on the other side. But as always, guys, remember, improve your performance. Have a lovely time. Thank you very much for listening.